What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to Crimson Tide Today with Zack Aitken. As always, I really appreciate you guys spending a few minutes of your day talking Alabama football with me. Before we get started, if you're enjoying the content and want to help the channel grow, make sure you hit that like button, subscribe if you haven't already, and share this video with another Alabama fan. Also, drop your thoughts in the comments section because I always enjoy hearing your perspective when we're discussing Alabama. And if you want to hear even more Alabama football content, recruiting updates, daily reactions, stuff like that, make sure to follow me on my social media. My X and Instagram is at ZAkin7. We've got a lot to get into today, so buckle up, settle in, let's talk some Alabama football. So, kicking off today's show, I want to talk about recruiting and specifically why Alabama currently finds itself in a very unusual position in the 2027 recruiting rankings. Right now, Alabama sits all the way down at number 33 nationally, and that's a ranking Alabama fans simply aren't used to seeing. Since the start of the Nick Saban era, Alabama has consistently lived near the very top of the recruiting world. I mean, think about it. Saban, he finished with 10 number one recruiting classes and 3 more ranked second nationally. For nearly 2 decades, elite recruiting wasn't just the standard in Tuscaloosa, it was expected. Even after Saban retired, Kalen DeBoer had largely kept that standard intact. Alabama's 2024 class finished second nationally, the 2025 class finished third, and the 2026 class came in sixth while landing elite prospects like Xavier Crowell, Xavier Griffin, and Jaira Edwards. So naturally, when fans look and see Alabama at 33 in the 2027 cycle, there's some alarm bells that are gonna be going off about the program. But according to reports, there's a lot more going on behind the scenes than what the rankings suggest. One major factor is Alabama's approach to NIL. In today's recruiting landscape, many programs are handing out massive NIL deals to these high school recruits. Alabama, however, they're trying to take a different route, going in a different direction. The Crimson Tide, they've assembled one of the youngest and most talented rosters in college football. Instead of spending huge amounts of money to stack on even more highly rated prospects on the roster that's already loaded with talent, the focus is reportedly on retaining players that are already in the building. Take the wide receiver room, for example. Alabama already has Ryan Coleman Williams, Lazier Brooks, Derek Meadows, Cedarian Morgan, and Noah Rogers in the room. If those players are developing as expected, does it make sense to spend an enormous amount of money on another elite receiver like Amon Sales who may not play right away? Alabama's answer, it appears to be no. Instead, the strategy is to preserve resources and be aggressive when a true need really emerges, whether that's through high school recruiting or in the transfer portal. The Tide, they're essentially betting on development and roster retention over winning recruiting rankings in July. I have no idea why other fans are trying to throw shade at Bama staff when they're trying to prioritize roster retainment versus throwing money at unproven high school kids. Now, whether you agree with that strategy, it's a whole nother discussion entirely. There's no question Alabama has struggled in state during this cycle. None of the top 10 prospects in Alabama are committed to the Crimson Tide, and several high profile targets have chosen programs like Texas, Miami, Ohio State, and Auburn. So, yeah, those losses, they do matter, but according to sources close to the program, Alabama believes its championship formula right now is keeping the young elite talent on campus rather than spending heavily to chase another 5-star recruit available. The big question is simple. Is that strategy going to work? If Alabama continues winning games, developing its young roster, and remaining a playoff contender, fans probably won't care what a recruiting class is ranked in July. But the results on the field, if they don't match the vision, expect the recruiting ranking conversation to get even louder. Let's talk about recruiting, and I want to talk about a name that's currently emerging as a prospect that fans need to know. It's junior college cornerback Alius Mayo. The talented defensive back out of Modesto Junior College in California, he's quickly become a major target for Kalen DeBoer and cornerbacks coach Maurice Linguist, and based on recent comments, Alabama appears to be firmly in the mix for his service. So Mayo, he recently spent several days in Tuscaloosa, first receiving an offer from Alabama on June 17th, before immediately returning for an official visit that lasted from June 18th to June 20th. And from everything we've heard and everything he said since leaving campus, it sounds like the visit couldn't have gone much better for the Crimson Tide. Mayo, he specifically pointed to Alabama's ability to develop players and prepare them for the NFL as one of the biggest things that stands out about the program. He also had plenty of praise for Coach Maurice Linguist. He called him a great coach and someone whose teaching style really connected with him. But honestly, that's not really that surprising. Ever since arriving on campus in Tuscaloosa, linguist, he's quickly established himself as one of Alabama's strongest recruiters, especially in the defensive backfield. Landing a prospect like Mayo, it will be another significant win for both Lindquist and the Crimson Tide coaching staff. What may be even more encouraging for the Alabama fans is how Mayo described the atmosphere during his visit. He said the environment felt like home, and he highlighted the relationships that he built with current defensive backs that are on the roster. That's always important in recruiting because it's really especially important in the recruitment cycle because Mayo, he made it very clear that's what matters most to him is those relationships in the building. When asked about the biggest factors in his upcoming decision, he didn't mention NIL, he didn't mention depth charts, he didn't mention immediate playing time. Instead, he pointed directly to those in-house development with relationships and player development as well. And for Alabama, that's exactly what you want to hear. The Crimson Tide have built their reputation on developing defensive backs and sending them to the NFL. From Pat Surtain II to Minkah Fitzpatrick to Marlon Humphrey and countless others, Alabama's track record, it speaks for itself as being DBU. Mayo also came away impressed with head coach Kalen DeBoer, describing him as approachable, understanding, and someone who genuinely wants to help players achieve their dreams and get where they want to go. Now, Alabama, they're not the only school battling for Mayo's commitment. That's pretty obvious. Schools like Cal Berkeley, LSU, Mississippi State, and Louisville, they're already involved in his recruitment, and Mayo's already taken official visits to other schools as well. But based on his comments, Alabama appears to be positioned extremely well heading towards decision time. The good news for Bama fans is we're not going to have to wait much longer to, figure out what Mayo has decided. He's expected to announce his college decision sometime in mid-August, so probably about a month away or so. And this recruitment, it should be near the top of Alabama fans' watch list for the next couple of weeks. Mayo's got great size, and I think this staff at Alabama really values it at the corner position. He's listed at 6'4", nearly 190 pounds, and he brings great size and athleticism for the cornerback position. Obviously, he's got a great combination of length, but that athleticism and the junior college experience, it could make him a valuable addition to Alabama's secondary. So we'll see how things play out, but right now, the Crimson Tide, they appear to have serious momentum with Mayo. Moving on, I want to talk about what could be a real issue for the Crimson Tide in 2026, and it should be a big concern. Just, most of the conversations we've been having, it's obvious. It's around the quarterback battle, replacing key defensive leaders, and the offensive line. I'm 100% on board with those conversations, but I've got another question for you guys. Will special teams be a problem again for Alabama? If we're being honest, the Crimson Tide special teams units, it simply wasn't good enough last season, and the numbers tell the story. Alabama, they finished last in SEC in yards per punt, near the bottom of the conference in field goal percentage, and ranked towards the bottom of the league in both kick return and punt return production. There was also the costly mistakes. I think of a blocked punt against Georgia in the SEC title game. I think of a blocked field goal against Oklahoma in the regular season where we had Connor Talty showing up his teammate on the national scale in Bryant-Denny Stadium. And those were two game-changing plays that both came in losses. Those are type of mistakes that can completely swing a football game, and unfortunately Alabama experienced that firsthand last year. Now, there is some good news for Alabama fans. The biggest reason for optimism is experience. Last season's special teams unit, it was incredibly young. Alabama was breaking in a new kicker, a new punter, and several specialists in critical roles. On top of that, 7 true freshmen, they played more than 100 special teams snaps. So that's a lot of youth on a unit where experience and communication matters tremendously. This year, Alabama returns 15 of the 17 players who logged significant special team snaps a season ago, and that continuity alone, it should lead to improvement. But Alabama didn't stop there. The Crimson Tide, they also added competition. Connor Talty, he's going to be returning at kicker, but he's going to be challenged now by a transfer, Lorcan Quinn, who reportedly showed off a strong leg during A-Day. At punter, Alabama added Adam Watford after a successful career at University of North Alabama, and while Alex Asperchov returns healthy, he's going to be looking to compete as well. Simply put, Alabama has more options and more competition than it had a year ago, and that's usually a good thing. The biggest mystery, it might be in the return game though. With Cole Adams and Jalen Mbakwe, they're no longer in those roles. Alabama has some important decisions to make. Players like Latsier Brooks, Ryan Coleman-Williams, and Rico Scott, they could all factor in the mix. And don't be surprised if an explosive freshman like Trayshawn Brown gets an opportunity as well. Finding a true difference maker in the return game, it could go a long way towards elevating the entire unit. Head coach Kalen DeBoer, he recently acknowledged that special teams needed improvement, but he also pointed out the increased familiarity among players and the value of having more experience throughout the unit. And obviously, that's probably the biggest takeaway. Alabama doesn't need special teams to be the best unit in college football. It just needs to stop losing games because of special teams mistakes. If the kicking game, it could become more reliable, if the return game becomes more explosive, and if Alabama can eliminate those costly breakdowns that showed up last season, this unit could quietly become one of the most improved areas on the roster. So the talent is there, the experience is there. Now the question is going to be will the results follow? Special teams has never been the headline of Alabama's season, but if the Crimson Tide are going to compete for an SEC championship and a college football playoff berth in 2026, it cannot be the reason that they come up short. And then, guys, wrapping up today's show, today's player preview. It's going to be focusing on one of the most intriguing players on Alabama's roster heading into the 2026 season. It's going to be sophomore cornerback Dijon Lee. When Alabama signed Dijon Lee out of California in 2025 in the 2025 class, there was a lot of excitement surrounding his potential. The former five-star prospect was viewed as one of the best defensive backs in the country, and he's the exact type of long, athletic corner that Alabama has built championship defenses on for years. Now, after spending a year developing in the program, Lee's ready to take on a much larger role with the Crimson Tide secondary. At 6'4", Lee immediately stands out from most cornerbacks in college football. His combination of size, length, athleticism, and ball skills, it gives him a unique scent that most defensive coordinators love. Receivers don't see defensive backs with his frame, and that allows him to disrupt passing lanes and challenge catches that other corners they just can't reach. The biggest question entering last season wasn't talent, it was experience. Like most freshman defensive backs, Lee had to learn the speed of the college game, understands Alabama's defensive system, and adjust to facing the elite competition every single day in practice. But by mid-season, Lee was able to take a starting spot from veteran Domani Jackson. The development period, it appears to have paid off. As Alabama enters the 2026 season, the opportunity is there for Lee to become one of the cornerstones of K-Womack's defense. With more experience, more confidence, and another offseason in the strength and conditioning program, the expectations is that we'll see a much more complete player this fall. What makes Lee especially important in this role is that Alabama asks a lot of their cornerbacks. The Crimson Tide frequently leave their corners in difficult one-on-one situations against some of the best receivers in the SEC. To succeed in that role, you need size, speed, physicality, and confidence. Lee possesses all four of those traits. If he continues to develop technically, particularly with his footwork and consistency in coverage, the ceiling's incredibly high. And that's why so many Alabama fans are excited about his future. When people talk about potential breakout players on this roster, Dijon Lee's name deserves to be near the top of the list. He has all the physical tools to be one of the SEC's premier defensive backs and potentially follow the path of former Alabama stars who turn elite college careers into NFL opportunities. Of course, potential and production, those are two different things. The next step for Lee is turning flashes of talent into consistent performances every single Saturday. Alabama doesn't need him to be perfect, but if he can become a reliable lockdown corner and make the opposing quarterbacks think twice about throwing his direction, the entire defense is going to benefit. And that's what makes this season so important. For Alabama, Dijon Lee could be the next great cornerback in Tuscaloosa, and he could be one of the rising stars in college football. If that happens, don't be surprised if by the end of the season we're talking about him as one of the best defensive backs in the SEC and a future NFL draft prospect. He's got the talent, he's going to have the opportunity. Now it's time for Dijon Lee to put it all together. As always, guys, I want to thank you for watching today's edition of Crimson Tide Today. What are some talking points that I missed? Drop them down in the comments to have it featured in a future episode. Until next time, roll Tide.